Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however, wherever, whenever you're listening. This is the Root for Wisconsin Show, episode 142, coming at you from the Riverwood Gallery Studio in De Pere, Wisconsin. I'm host, producer Eric Fisher, the Big E. Joining me this week, we've got college roommate Dylan Trick. Dylan, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Fantastic. And Dylan, thank you for joining us back-to-back weeks. 2 episodes last week. I think we're going to stick it to 1 this week. But last week there was a lot to discuss, and there still is a lot to discuss this week, but I think we'll be able to contain it to 1. We did not have as much happen this week as that did last week.
Should be able to squeeze it all in. We'll do our best.
So with that in mind, we start off with what we always do, and that is talking about our friends over at Ragin' Pro Wrestling, RPW. RPW has their first event of 2024 next week, RPW Redemption 3. That is at the Watering Hole on February 10th. Tickets are still available for that. You can get them at rpwprowrestling.com, at Look Sharp in the Fox River Mall, and, of course, at the Watering Hole itself. Doors will open at 5:30. Surge, which is the pre-show, starts at 6, and RPW Redemption 3 starts at 7. So you're going to want to be there. Ramsey and myself will for sure be there. Still kind of working out the other pieces of that, of who's joining us. I believe we will have a different college roommate of mine joining us, who is not affiliated with the show. So we're still potentially having 1 extra ticket, so we'll see what happens with that. With that in mind, we get right into the heart of our episode here, Dylan. That is talking about what we had rooted for in the previous week. And what do you got for us, Dylan? What's been going on since we last recorded?
I have a couple.
All right.
One, it's gonna be silly, and I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm just gonna say Preston Smith.
Okay.
We'll cover that later. We'll cover it
I
later.
think I know where you're going with this, and I'm already excited.
Will. Yeah. The next one I'm gonna go with is CBS.
CBS, like the broadcasting company?
Not CBS. Not CBS. Yes, CBS Sports. CBS Sports. They are going to be partnering with Nickelodeon for Super Bowl 58 coverage.
Yes.
That will include SpongeBob SquarePants and Patrick Star in the booth.
Let's go.
They will also have Sandy Cheeks making her sideline reporting debut and Larry the Lobster providing live commentary.
That is incredible.
Yes, that is going to be on the alternative telecast for Super Bowl 58. They will all be voiced by their original voice actors. And, big one, the SpongeBob original song, Sweet Victory, is supposed to be performed in its entirety at Super Bowl 58. They teased us a little bit at Super Bowl 9, the one in 2019, the one where they played a little bit of it, and then Travis Scott took over and Maroon 5 ruined it.
It's a valid point.
Yes. So
I want to go on record saying I'm a big fan of the alternate broadcast that the NFL has been doing and partnering with. I have watched the alternative playoff game each year that they have done it. Mm-hmm. This year with CBS getting the Super Bowl back, obviously they are not, or they hadn't done it until the Super Bowl. It usually was Super Wild Card Weekend. But I am very excited for this to occur because, like I said, it is nothing short of incredible. First of all, I mean, the presentation of it, maybe it's a little silly for some, but they really do make it on a kid level. Mm-hmm. And they throw in elements that I think keeps kids' attentions with, I mean, they've got the slime cannons for touchdowns, and they've got SpongeBob's face in the uprights. It's really, I mean, it really is incredible.
Yep. They're also going to be having Dora the Explorer and Boots explaining the penalty calls during the games.
That's a change up because it had been young Sheldon
before.
No,
it's going to be Dora and Boots.
I
could really care less about those. I would have rather seen like Mr. Krabs and Plankton. But I can see you're trying to get different kid fans of different shows interested in the game. So I can see it makes sense.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm always been a big fan of it. Am I going to watch that version of it live this year? Probably not. I am going to DVR it though, because again, how can you not? Like that's must watch TV, and I think that's incredible. Between Nickelodeon's version of this and then the Toy Story alternate broadcast, where it was like computer generated in real time, like Toy Story-esque animation.
Yep.
The NFL and their corporate, whether it be CBS/Paramount or ESPN/ABC/Disney, has really been taking monumental steps to expand the game and make it kid friendly, and has done incredible jobs with those broadcasts. So the broadcasting nerd in myself appreciates it, and the technology that goes into it. The inner millennial child in me loves it as well. It's really it hits home runs all across the board.
I agree.
I really wish that other sports would jump on as well and really kind of just fully embrace it for all sports. I feel like it's got to be coming. I think the NBA will probably happen before MLB. But I think there are ways to incorporate that in these major sports and really kind of go a different way to grow your audience.
I agree.
Back to the episode itself, my root for is I also have two. One, just again, it's almost always the Green Bay Phoenix have just been having incredible seasons, and I think we're almost getting to a point where they may deserve their own segment. I don't know if that's going to happen tonight just because of our time constraints. And other things that we need to talk about this week, but Green Bay Phoenix men got a huge win today. They had something really cool program that they actually took from their opponent they played today, and they do Educators Day. And Educators Day, they had over 3,500 kids in the building with different schools, different grade levels, and I'm sure they made it in, they had like, okay, keep book for the math, or some of the older kids probably had to do with the shooting percentages and all that. Like I don't know how they all factored it in, but they had an 11 o'clock tip-off time, which is a little odd. But the biggest basketball crowd the Rush has had, and I know it for a fact 5 years, but probably going on close to 10.
Probably close to when we were in school when Madison came to town.
Yeah, that one was a 10,000 plus. I think this is probably closer to when you would have been a freshman. I was still in high school, but I know we both went to this game, the Virginia game.
Yeah, that one was huge too.
But with the 3,500 kids and then the season ticket holders and all that were there, I believe announced attendance was over 5,000 today, which again, for the first time in quite some time. But even without that going on, this last weekend, so the Thursday-Saturday games, they had hosted over the conference schedule last week, had been the highest attended game since 2019 with, I believe, 3,100 and 3,300 were the numbers, which, I mean, speaks to just how much of an impact Coach Wicks and the rest of his staff and the team on the court have had on the community, where it's becoming a hot ticket in town. And to quote Barry Alvarez, when he took the job at Wisconsin coaching football, he said, you're going to want to get your season tickets now because they're not going to be available in a few years. And really, is that going to happen at the mid-major level, where a coach stays around for a long time? If they're good, probably not. That's just the reality of the business, right? But if you build the program up to make it where that next coach after you, if you don't stick around, has to have that same level of excellence. I mean, look at the Green Bay women, where it was Borseth, well, even before Borseth, but Borseth, Matt Ballant, and then again Kevin Borseth on the second stint. You have to build up that program somehow, and it starts with this, and then you keep building up from there. So incredible praise on that front. The second one I have for my root for is Griffin Russo. And that's a name that some of our our Gillett listeners may know he is the son of former teachers Rebecca and Adam Russo of Gillett. They now live in Stoughton, Wisconsin, down by Madison. And this week, Griffin, who is a 6'7", 305-pound offensive lineman, made his college commitment to the University of Illinois.
Yes, I did see that.
So we actually are going to be having him on our Back to the Roots show. Still working on scheduling with Justin and Griffin as to finding a time that all three of us are available. But very exciting for him. A kid that, for what it's worth, I mean, I knew him when he was really, really little because his mom was my homeroom teacher for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And actually his mom, and a big credit to why we are here doing this show, because she was the editor-in-chief of our school newspaper, made me an editor, and really kind of set my path to going into communication. Because originally I was thinking about sports medicine. I took A&P, and that sucked, but kind of led me on this path to be here. So big shout out to Rebecca Russo and, of course, their son, Griffin, making his commitment to the University of Illinois.
Real quick, I just want to go back to your other point. That UWGB versus Wisconsin game at the Resch Center held November 16th, 2013 is currently the 9th largest or highest capacity event in Resch Center history with just over 9,300 fans.
Yeah. And
so
that's
going to be a tough one to top. That's going to be a real tough one to top. But
especially when you factor in that was one of the very few basketball games where they actually. So if you go to the Resch Center, obviously it's like every other arena out there, where it's kind of got the circle in the middle. It's a hockey arena. So they've got the circle in the middle that's the size of the rink, and then seating all the way around. For basketball games, they usually cut off one of the ends and kind of shorten that crowd and take out that end of the bowl. That was one of the few games they left it up completely because of the demand for tickets. So,
yeah, it says right here their capacity for basketball games is 9,729, and according to their Resch Center Wikipedia page, that game was 9,301. That's a 95.6% capacity. That
we'll
building
have you around for the
jumping.
math.
Yep. That building was jumping. I remember that. Well, I remember part of
it. I was not at that game. I tried to go. I can't remember what my schedule interference was. I was a high school senior, so I wasn't in college yet. But I know that was a big one, and I know incredible game too for what it's worth. Where
it was only a 3-point loss.
That was Wisconsin's first run at the Final Four. 3-point loss where Kiefer Sykes missed 3, where it was missed short. It was online. Missed it a tad short. Would have gone to overtime. But there's also the highlight of him going up and over Frank Kaminsky. Missed the dunk on the alley-oop. But he was up and over Frank Kaminsky. I would say it's the best missed dunk I've ever seen.
Well, considering Kiefer was what? What was he listed at?
Listed at 6 foot. He was not 6 foot.
Yeah, he was 5'10", 5'11".
On his best day with shoes.
Yeah.
But so that is our root for us. But with the positives do come the negatives, Dylan. That leads us to our Tyler Hero Noogie of the Week. And to be honest with you, I'm going to let you go first because I'm trying to think of if I have one or not. I've had a couple candidates, but I don't know if I'm fully on board with any of them.
I do have one. This could potentially turn into a talking point. It comes from 2 NBA players. So this, I believe, will be the second week in a row that Draymond Green has gotten one of my doogies.
Okay.
The other player is Oshkosh North's own Tyrese Halliburton.
Oh boy.
Now Indiana Pacer.
Oh boy.
Big fans of both of their games, except for Draymond's dirty side. But they recently went public with their criticism of the NBA's 65 game rule.
Okay. Basically, that's for MVP votes, right?
it applies to MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player, the All NBA teams, and the All Defensive teams. The Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, and the All Rookie teams are not impacted.
Okay.
So basically, the rule is to qualify for those awards, you have to meet one of the following criteria. You either have to play in at least 65 regular season games, or you play in at least 62 regular season games, suffered a season-ending injury, and played in at least, 85% of the regular season games played by his team prior to suffering said injury. So you're basically allowed to miss 17 games.
Right.
You also must log at least 20 minutes in that game for it to be counted toward your 65 game rule, but you are allowed up to 2 instances where you can play between 15 and 20 for that game to still count toward your 65 game minimum.
Okay.
Right? So, it's tough because these athletes, their bodies take a ton of beating. But at the same time, these guys are $1 million athletes, and in Tyrese Halliburton's case, he's got a 5-year, $200 million contract, right?
Sure.
All you got to do is hit 80% of the games. 65 over 82 is 79.3%. So they're calling it a stupid rule, and they're saying, well, it's what the owners want. The owners got to be happy, and to an extent, they are right. The owners are their bosses. If the owners want them on the court, they should be on the court.
Governors.
Yeah. The NBA is a sports league just as much as it is an entertainment business, right? Their goal is to sell tickets. They want to put butts in seats, and their big name star players being on the bench isn't going to put butts in seats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what this came from is specifically Tyrese Halliburton is, if he were to make an all NBA team this season, which, considering he's an all-star starter, I'm going to say there's a pretty good chance he's going to do that.
He's on pace.
He's on pace. He is projected to get a bonus worth $41 million spread over the course of his entire contract, 5-year contract. But if he doesn't hit his 65 game minimum, he's not eligible. So he has to, I think he's missed 13 games. So he's got 4 games. He can only miss 4 more games the rest of the season. And if he does, he can kiss 41 million goodbye. I mean, he's still making $200 million, but 41 million isn't chump change by any means.
So just to clarify, is your noogie on the rule itself or on these guys for criticizing it?
I think I think it's going to be on the guys for criticizing it, because like I said, that's 80% of, you got to play 80% of the season.
Okay.
Right. I don't, I have a hard time with this one because, like I said, playing a professional sport is not easy on the body. But at the end of the day, these guys are professional athletes. That's what they've done their entire life. I believe they should be able to hit that minimum of 65 games. I mean, we have the MVP of the season last year, Joel Embiid, has already missed 13 games.
Mm-hmm.
We're halfway through the season. He's the front runner for the MVP this year. I believe he actually deserves it this year, unlike last year. And he's missed 13 games. So he's got 5. If he misses 5 games, he's missing out on an MVP, basically.
See, I'm going to go on the rule itself. Like, I get where you're coming from. I think my issue is that the rule itself, because I get why it's a rule, because, if a guy only plays like 50 games or 60 games, like, you can make an argument that he's not really the MVP and should be
Right.
taking away an award spot. If he gets hurt in say February or whatever ends up being March, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I get where that's coming from, the nature of it. And I get also, you're a professional athlete, you're getting paid to play a game. There's a lot of people out there who can barely afford bread and milk and basic essentials, and you're complaining about, playing 82 games a year for a sport,
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, you also have people who are, struggling to get by, who, they scrap all their money together, they buy a ticket day of or something like that. And the expectation is that they should get to see their star players. And I know the NBA has put rules in to try to avoid star players missing out on road trips, especially when it's a kind of a rare one, like a once a year type road trip for an East versus West matchup, things like that.
Yeah.
So I get where it comes from, but I also kind of have a hard time with that rule because I think they're onto something too, where if it's one like kind of nagging injury and you miss three games here or 2 here, that adds up pretty quickly. And you should be penalized for an impressive season where you basically played all year, but you missed a couple small stints here and there. So I guess I go back and forth on it. I can see the nature of it. I'm not sure if I would make it noogie worthy, but I definitely get the gist of it.
I'm like you. I'm back and forth on it. Tyrese has had a hamstring injury where he's missed 10 out of the last 11 games because of one hamstring injury. And I get it. The doctors at the end of the day are the ones telling these guys if they're good to go or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe it is a medical decision more than anything. But, if you can't hit 4/5 of the season, you got to draw a line. The NBA had to draw a line somewhere.
Sure.
And they picked 80% as their line, which I think is a fair number. If you want, that's a $41 million is a hell of an incentive.
Yeah.
That's not chump change. That's
no.
You and I could live on that money for the rest of our lives. And he's going to get it over 5 years if he makes an all NBA team in one season.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's a tough one, but I lean towards the players being a little
accountable,
overreacted. Yeah, they need to be a little more accountable. Like the Kawhi Leonards that just sit and save themselves for the postseason. That's what this rule is made for.
Right.
You can't make a rule that's going to encompass every single scenario. So.
Right. All right, Dylan. Yeah. Well, I said I wasn't sure I had a noogie or not. I take that back. I have a couple.
Okay.
Because apparently, actually, looking back, when I look through this, I look at what I had tweeted about over the last handful of days, and apparently, I've been pretty pissed off a few days now. So, we're gonna make this quick because a lot of them, they're not as serious as that one, as discussion worthy, but we're gonna go on it. So first, starting today, so I'm gonna work backwards since last time we recorded. The first one is. It's a very controversial one, but it's this conversation about CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, where former athletes have mental problems and addiction and impulse control and suicidal thoughts and all that, and to what extent does it go to the amateur athlete who never went to the NFL? That's still being studied, etc. ESPN put out an article today about how CTE fears have surpassed the science of what actually is involved. Where the noogie comes in is just the fact that the people who try to minimize it took that article and are calling it like the CTE hoax and all this other stuff, which I think, having read the article itself, to me, the biggest takeaway of it was there's other factors going on as well. when it gets to, especially like some of the younger athletes, like you can see the signs of it are there, and it just hasn't progressed to full on CTE, which I don't think is that controversial to take. I don't think it makes it a hoax. I think it's, yeah, you were probably in progress of it. It led to, other things, which I don't think it's reinventing the wheel to say that if you injure your brain, there's probably going to be repercussions of some sort, whether it be short term in terms of short term memory loss, things like that, or long term adverse effects where impulse control, addiction, things like that, and then ultimately leads to depression and everything else like that. So I'm not going to go on a whole mental health journey on this here, but to call that article today a hoax because it's just saying, hey, like there's more studies going on. There's definitely more studies needed to really fully get the impact of this. Definitely is a way to go. My next one, as I was going through, I did have to say, I know how hard bracketology and figuring out brackets must be, but the disrespect that some of these small schools and smaller conferences get when it comes to like actually looking at the tape, when that's your job, you have to do it twice a week, is nothing short of incredible. Where, I know it's probably hard to figure out every mid-major's one-team bid, and it's easy to go with the first-place team as your automatic qualifier or placeholder for now. But it just comes off incredibly lazy to me to go that route and just be automatic with it. I love that right now it benefits Green Bay on both the men and women's side. Right. But there's a few outlets here and there. One has Youngstown State, which is second place in the conference. I saw another one with Oakland, which is like third place in the conference now, which again, you're splitting hairs. Maybe that is part of the research, but like I said, it just seems like they're not updating all the small conference ones because it came after the day after Green Bay beat Oakland, takes sole possession, and had split the series with them on the men's side. So that's my take on that. So that was my other nugget. My third one, and probably my most kind of controversial one, man, the Lions. MCDC, what a bunch of frauds. And I feel bad for Lions fans. This isn't a diss on Lions fans anywhere. You deserve better. Lions fans, if you're listening right now, stay plugged in here. I'm just saying, I feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for your team. I feel bad for you that you had to watch what happened Sunday happen to you. I mean, Packer fans are very familiar with this feeling, especially in an NFC Championship game a la 2015 with Seattle. But this honestly takes the cake because at least in that one, it just kind of happened over the course of 6 minutes and basically came down to like one drive. This happened over the course of basically the full second half because your coach refused to get out of his own way. And going for fourth downs when you can take points and, not kicking field goals and going for two in places, it's great in the regular season where you're playing Arizona, doesn't really matter, whatever. But you have a chance to go to the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history. And to be honest with you, up to that point, and even through most of the third quarter, I think Detroit outplayed San Francisco.
I agree.
The turning point of that game truly, truly was that missed fourth down conversion where you have a chance to go from up 24-10 to up 27-10. Because that impacts how San Francisco plays the game. I mean, they go down and score, they're down one touchdown. They have to make one more stop. Their defense, they're biting at the bit a little bit more because now all they need is one stop. It's a tie game or a chance to make a tie game.
Yep.
So instead, you don't go for the field goal. You miss the fourth down conversion on a drop, by the way. So, I mean, the play call, you can argue, was right. But the fact that, the decision to go for it when that's the basically a 50-50 shot of the outcome. Yeah, this is very flawed. So the next, they go, San Francisco goes down and scores. They have this incredible play off the defender's face mask. Brandon Ayuk stays with the play, makes the catch. They score like 2 plays later. And then on the ensuing kickoff, the first play from scrimmage or second play from scrimmage, Detroit fumbles.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense is back on the field, ties the game. And then goes up, or San Francisco goes up 3. And my favorite part of this, and where this is the most noogie-worthy, is once again, fourth quarter, about 5 minutes left in the game. Dan Campbell down 3, didn't learn from his earlier mistake, decides to not kick a field goal on fourth down, which would have tied the game,
Mm-hmm.
and decides to go for it. Misses again, incomplete pass. San Francisco goes on and scores a touchdown, makes a 10-point game. I mean, essentially it's over. Detroit goes down, gets they do finally get a fourth down conversion for a touchdown. But the amount of time that they burned made it fully impossible for any sort of comeback because they refused to call their timeouts. So that's my last noogie with that. So
I'm glad you got that off your chest.
I really needed to, because the whole Dan Campbell thing, I mean, I love for Lions fans that they had a year of relevancy. I really do.
Hope they enjoyed it while it lasted.
Yeah, pretty much. I think they still have a very good franchise plan. They're on the right track. They're only building up yet. I don't think they're going down as a franchise, but man, that's one of those where it's like they really.
You could have had that.
You should have had that if you even if you go for one of those. Go for one of those. And the argument that, in the fourth quarter they decided to kick a field goal, make it, or second quarter, excuse me. And they missed. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the chance to go for it when they should have kicked, and they had one where they kicked and should have gone for it, just all backwards. Anyway, so that is our Tyler Hero Noogies of the week. We move on to our Wisconsin web stories of the week, and I say web stories because this one actually is a little bit longer. There's a couple different ones I want to hit on because a couple of things just need to be talked about here in the state of Wisconsin. First, this one, the quickest one, in Superior, Wisconsin this week, a live World War II era grenade was found at a Goodwill among donated items. They didn't know it was in there. Ashland, excuse me, not Superior, Ashland, also up there though, was discovered in a bin of donated items. An employee found the grenade, called 911. Everybody was evacuated, was made safe. But World War II era grenade found in Ashland, Wisconsin. So shout out to Ashland, shout out to Goodwill.
Yeah.
So that's one. One that I did not expect to have to talk about in Wisconsin in February, but this is almost kind of noogie worthy. The fact that there is no ice almost right now. And obviously a major hamper on the economy for ice fishing and all the snow sports and winter sports up north that, involve bars and all that. And I'm sure a lot of profit being missed out on. But we're getting to a point where the Battle on Bago decided to cancel their sturgeon-spearing fishing portion on Lake Winnebago because there's just not ice conditions. And a lot of these sportsman clubs out around the state of Wisconsin are missing out on this and missing out on their tournaments because of the deteriorating ice conditions, which goes without saying. If you're listening to this in the state of Wisconsin, please don't be stupid. No fish is worth any of that.
Yeah.
And then our third one, Dylan, a little bit multifaceted here, so I don't know if you know this or not, and I think you do because we were talking about it earlier this week. My favorite holiday of the year is Groundhog Day, and that comes tomorrow morning. And I just have to shout out here a couple. Obviously, the main one out in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, with my boy Phil. Got to shout him out. But two really big ones in Wisconsin as well. Here in the Green Bay area at the Bay Beach Wildlife Sanctuary, there is Bernard, the groundhog, in his debut last year. Not as much lore as with Phil. because he took over from a groundhog that passed away. Phil doesn't die. Puxatawny Phil has the elixir of life and is immortal.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little FYI for the folks out there. Phil is the GOAT when it comes to groundhogs. But there is another one in Wisconsin that gets a lot of publicity, and I believe that one's name is Gus. It's in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, so down by the Madison area.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a fairly large Groundhog Day event down there. Trying to find old buddy's name, and I'm struggling to find it, but Groundhog Day is tomorrow. Like I said, best holiday of the year. And yeah, so if you're like me and you want to celebrate, there are some Wisconsin options. And of course, the OG out in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania. Jimmy the Groundhog in Sun Prairie. Ceremony takes place at 6:50 a.m. in Sun Prairie for those interested.
You gonna be up for that?
You know, it's like the one day a year I wake up early, and I live stream the Puxatawny one. As a member of the official Puxatawny Groundhog Club, I feel obligated.
Or something else, my friend.
It's worth it, man. It's
Hey, you enjoy what you enjoy. I'm not going to judge.
I
I'm
honestly
going to keep it to myself because I'm a polite human.
Honestly, I want to join the inner circle. The guys who walk around with top hats and tuxedos and carry around Phil.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, think about, like, that's the ultimate retirement job, right? Like, they go around, they make cameo videos with this groundhog. There's a whiskey distillery out in Pennsylvania that made a maple syrup bourbon aged rye whiskey in honor of Phil. There's the Samuel Adams Cold Snap beer, which is the official beer of Puxatawny Groundhog Day.
Oh.
And they take Phil to all these cool places, and they hang out with Phil. They go to breweries, they go to distilleries, they make cameo videos. Like, they're living the dream.
That sounds awesome.
I know, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if this is a cult or not, but if this is, I'm fully invested.
It's a good day to be a groundhog.
It's a great day to be a groundhog. All right, back to sports. So that's our quick look around the state of Wisconsin and Wisconsin culture and everything like that. So we go back to the world of sports. Starting with the city of Milwaukee, we'll start with the Brewers real quick. Couple little housekeeping things. One, Brewers announced some renderings of 2 new video boards yesterday. One, obviously the main one out in center field, then another one in right center, which is what a lot of ballparks at the major league level are going towards. So really cool to kind of see that come to fruition and make it, the next step to making AmFam even better within the state and kind of using some of that taxpayer money for something pretty cool. So one of the additions that they were kind of instructed to make, that's one of them. So we'll pay attention to that and see when it gets unveiled later this spring. They did officially agree to terms with former Boston Red Sox Christian Arroyo, infielder, on a minor league deal. Very minor, kind of inconsequential deal, but something just to mention. And then the third thing within the Brewers organization, this one coming from the city of Appleton, Fox City Stadium named Major League or Minor League Baseball's Baseball Digest Stadium of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
So real cool, really awesome designation for them. And for those that haven't been to a game at Fox City Stadium, it's awesome. It really is the place to go, I think. I mean, it's a hidden gem as much as a hidden gem can be on Highway 41.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You and I hit one up last year. We got our seats. We got there, and one of the, I don't know, what do you want to call them?
Ushers
came up. He's like, "Hey, you guys want to go sit in diamond seating?" No one showed up, and we're like, "Oh yeah, we will." Went over there. Yeah, $2
beers that day.
8 ounces probably.
Something like that. 10, 12. Cups. Something like that.
I would say 12. I think 12 is maybe. Well, Yeah, 12 probably. It's just a standard size cup. I mean, $2, you're not even gonna get that at any bars around there.
No.
So even if you want to go just drink, it's a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good time. Hoping we can hit some more up this summer. And
Yeah, it's honestly it's one of my favorite places to be. You get a quality entertainment, even if you're not a huge baseball fan, between inning entertainment and all that.
yeah,
Plenty for little kids to do between the different play areas, the slide, etc. One of the few ballparks that has like the all the way around porch option where you can kind of get up by the
yep,
bullpens, get a
yep.
different look of kind of the baseball process. You don't really get, I mean, you don't really get that close to Major League Baseball, things like that either. So just a lot of perks there. The food's always great. Drink prices are always pretty reasonable. So
Very reasonable.
it's quality family entertainment. And of course, being the minor league affiliate of the Brewers doesn't hurt either.
Go Rattlers.
So that's the baseball side of things. Dylan, I turn to you. How the Bucks now in their first stint here with Doc Rivers. He's been the coach for 2 games now, I believe, or 3.
Yeah.
So what's been going on with our Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, since the last time we chatted, the Bucks have dropped 3 of their last 4. It's a little disappointing. Since Doc Rivers has taken over, well, let me get to the first 2 games first. Friday the 26th, they dropped 1 to Cleveland. They lost that one 112 to 100. Cleveland is not a bad team by any means. We are 2-2 against them so far this year. They have good things going for them. Saturday, the following day, absolutely waxed New Orleans at home, 141-117. New Orleans isn't a bad. I mean, they're just over 500, so they're not. I mean, they're in the first in their division, but they were a team that we should have beat. Yeah, so I'm glad that we did, and we beat them handily. Then we went to Denver, lost that one 113-107. Close.
To the reigning champs.
Yes, so that one is slightly more understandable. It was a pretty close game throughout the entire game. Would have been really nice to see pull that one off in Denver. This one was the disappointing one. Was the at Portland. Lost that one 119-116. Portland is 15-33. It's not a game a 32-16 team should be losing by any means. Close game until basically the third quarter was ending, and then Portland just started to pull away. So there are going to be growing pains, obviously, with Doc Rivers coming in. I do question the end of the game when he had Damian Lillard inbounding the ball to Giannis, knowing Portland was going to foul.
Sure.
I do question that. The armchair quarterback in me would say maybe have Giannis inbound it to Dame, but hindsight's always 20/20.
Sure.
But looking ahead, these next 4 games, we got Dallas coming up 26-22. That one should be a winnable game, though Luka is on a pretty hot streak. Utah at 24-25. Very winnable game. Should pull that one out. And then we are at Phoenix. Yes, we're at Phoenix on Tuesday the 6th. That's going to be a good game, I think. And then a real test is going to be Thursday the 8th, where we are hosting Minnesota, who I believe is still on top of the West at 34-14 currently. So they have some time. Okay, that's what I thought. They do have 3 decent challenges ahead of them in at Dallas, at Utah, at Phoenix, to really work out some of the kinks that they have introducing a new head coach halfway through the season before their first. Hey, this is going to be a big game here when they host Minnesota on Thursday. We may be recording before that. We may be recording during that. Well, time will tell. So I'd like to see them pull out these next 3 games, at least. It's frustrating. That Portland loss is really frustrating. I'm sure some of it was just Damian Lillard being nervous, anxious for his return to Portland.
Sure.
I don't think he played a bad game by any means. Let me see here. 25 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 9 of 23 shooting, 3 of 13 from 3 in 40 minutes. So, he's +6. He didn't do poorly. Could have done better. Should have done better.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it at the same time. I get it. So we'll see what they can do in these next 3 games. I'm going to remain optimistic, but time will tell.
One thing we talked about when he first got hired, and kind of looking at everything that the Bucks had been doing, like, yes, they're very successful at the time, being 30-13 at the time he gets fired. And obviously the defense was the big concern, and the question marks that were with this team. I can't cite the person who had said it, and this, I believe, was before the Portland game, but after the Denver game, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But in the time since Doc Rivers took over, and actually just even from moving on from Adrian Griffin with Joe Prenti being in the head seat for, 2 games, really, it kind of showed the defensive effort the team put out, where from where they were, I think it was 24th in the league out of the 30. And then when they look at the points allowed in those, in the 5 games now since Adrian Griffin got fired, they've been averaging about 111 a game, which is good for 11th in the league. So just a very small sample size, nothing to really hang your hat on and talk about yet, but just the presence of mind and the effort and everything kind of coming with that, in and of itself right there, shows that a change was needed and that you're trending in the right direction. So I, obviously still very optimistic. It's a work in progress, and for what it's worth, doesn't really, I'm going to say it doesn't really matter until you get to the postseason for the Bucks. They've always been in that spot, but this is this is an experiment until that happens, right? You got 30 some odd games.
Yep. They have plenty of time to figure it out.
To get there, you're at just shy of 50 games. There are 48 games, so you got 34 games to figure out your rotations, figure out your effort, where that's going to come from. Maybe grab a piece or 2 from either the buyout market or trade market, whatever, and figure out what the identity of this year's team is going to be and make that run. So 34 games. It's an experiment. As long as you get in the dance and you're all likelihood going to be one of these top 3 teams, that's just the reality of the situation once again. You've got time, figure it out, get to the dance, go from there.
Yep.
So
agreed.
That's what we got for basketball Bucks talk tonight. Talked about the Phoenix a little bit on the men's side, the women's side. Kind of more of the same. They played last Wednesday night when we were recording, so they got the win that night. And then since then, they played one other game that was on, I believe, Sunday, and they were winners in that one. Big win.
Convincing win for
the Phoenix. on Alumni Day, get a week, just shy of a week off, 6 days off, and probably their biggest regular season game left. And that's broadcaster speak. Coach speak is always the next one's the most important.
Yeah,
I'm sure if we had talked to Megan Vogel or Kevin Borseth, that's the exact words they would say. But I'm not Megan Vogel. I'm not Kevin Borseth. So I say this. Their biggest game that's left on the schedule of the regular season is this Saturday. And why is that happening? Because it is a first place battle, essentially, with Cleveland State. Green Bay comes in at 17-4 on the regular season, and I'm just going to get the conference standings up here as well. 10-1
17-4. Yep.
The Cleveland State Vikings are at 19-4 on the season, 10-2 in the conference, and I believe that counts a win today. Actually, they played yesterday. So they got a win over Purdue Fort Wayne yesterday. So it was at a full game going into the weekend. But this essentially, you'll have all tiebreakers here because Green Bay's already beaten Cleveland State once. This is essentially for your regular season title. Again,
at Cleveland State. So
at Cleveland State, at the Wolstein Center, which is all reports. I've never been to the building myself, but coaching staff has said this is one of the tougher buildings to play in. It's in the middle of BFE in Cleveland. And the sight lines are incredibly different than what's at the Crest Center. So it's a tough place to play. Cleveland State plays a tough zone. It's a wonky zone. I'm not sure if you can shed any insight on that, Dylan, as a former practice player, as to what that zone is.
No, I can't. I got nothing.
It's not a traditional 2-3, but it's like an offshoot of it.
Is it more like a 2-1-2?
I don't think it really even has a name. It's just an odd defense. That's the only way. It's I believe the word Megan Vogel used to describe it in her post-game comments are wonky.
Yeah. I do remember from way back when we did practice against some zones, but again, that was 10 years ago. So you're reaching back for memories that just don't exist anymore. So they've been buried under years of alcohol.
I wish I could describe this and what it is, but honestly, I just there's not words for it. It's just such an odd combination of probably like three schemes all in one. It's kind of like a 2-1-2. It's kind of a 3-2. It's kind of a 2-2-3. It makes teams uncomfortable. It forces a lot of odd looks. It's, I guess the best way to describe it, and this is coming from Cleveland.com, it's swarming double team trap 2-3, kind of like what you probably would say like a high school level. But yeah, it can be a struggle. So
well, if anyone's going to be prepared for it, it's going to be the Green Bay coaching staff. So,
and it's nice. They how the Horizon schedule fell. They had a full week off.
Yep.
Basically,
be healthy, and
so everybody will be as healthy as possible, with first place on the line, and really one of those games where, again, the Horizon League really trying to become a 2-win or 2-team league this season for a possible NCAA tournament. The overarching belief is that even if Green Bay is not the automatic qualifier, that they would have enough of a resume to be an at-large, but obviously probably prefer to take out the middleman and not even worry about it.
Right. Well, even if Green Bay does lose this game, Green Bay has played two ranked opponents in Creighton at 22 and Washington State at 23, and Green Bay has won both of those games. So there's not much more that Green Bay could do.
Right.
They've done everything the committee is going to ask of them. So, even if you win this game, it's going to look great on their resume.
Right. And that's where you're at right now. You're building resume for worst case scenario. Last time they played, Green Bay, an 85-72 winner over Cleveland State. That was at the Crest Center. That game, Cassie Schultz, 27 points. Also, some big efforts from Jasmine Kondrakowicz, the reigning Horizon League Player of the Week. She had 10 points that game. Maddie Schreiber had 16. Natalie McNeil had 10. And Jenna Geyer with 10 off the bench. So, what was that, 5 double-digit scoring efforts in that game, and that's what it takes to beat them. So big game Saturday for them. Ben got the win today. That's their only game of the week. So they are off the rest of the week and going into Thursday, where they make their kind of post their final run here at the regular season prior to the conference tournament. So great time to be a Phoenix fan. The Wisconsin Badgers men are in action tonight on the road against Nebraska. They're up to number 6 in the AP poll. Marquette's next game is Saturday on the road at Georgetown, number 9 in the country. So there's some damn good basketball played in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the
Sunday night.
Panthers.
Sunday night is going to be a big night for the Badgers when they host number 2 in the country, Purdue.
That's going to be a good one.
That's going to be a good one. And,
Sunday afternoon at 12.
Yep.
Noon tip on CBS.
Zach Edey comes to town, reigning player of the year, favorite to win it this year. See if they can contain him.
All right. So that is our Hoops Talk, college and pro. Aside from that, Dylan, not really a whole lot, outside of the Packers, which going into this week and even as early as if we had recorded last night or Tuesday night, didn't think we'd have a whole lot to talk about there.
How things change.
How things have changed. Now, do you want to start with the big news or do you want to start with Brian Gutekunst's postseason press conference?
To be honest, I didn't watch his postseason press conference. So we can start with that, and then we can get to the big news, which once we reveal the big news, I can go into my first rooting for.
All right. So honestly, not a whole lot to take away from his press conference. I will say I didn't watch it in real time, but just the relief of him not having to talk about Aaron Rodgers' offseason plans, I'm sure, was heavily on his mind. It was a very fan-friendly postseason press conference or end-of-season press conference. Talking about the success of Jordan Love and that the Packers are preparing to extend him this offseason, which was kind of a given. Confirming that the team is not going to be taking trade offers on Jair Alexander.
Yep, I did see that.
Which a lot of us knew. I knew you were all in bees in your bonnet about it, all worried about his Instagram post. He got you.
I was slightly concerned, yes.
And then absolutely expects Aaron Jones to be back and cites him as a difference maker this season and what took the offense to the next level. As we had mentioned last week, that's likely going to take some restructuring, but expects him back, which is awesome to hear. I think that's always been the intention. So really the big takeaways there, and then just kind of glowing on the rest of the team and typical GM speak of, draft strategy. Well, we're going to get the best player available. And, what do you feel about the offensive line? Well, we want the best 5 out there. Thanks. Not really showing the cards, but keeping them close to the vest while also just, again, very relaxed, exciting tone. So that's the easy part. And then, of course, the big news. Oh, go ahead.
I would like to add one thing to that. I just looked up a synopsis of his press conference. I do like how he is setting the lofty goal of it's Super Bowl or bust. You know, he's not. We're not. It tells me as a fan that rebuild time is over. It's pedal to the metal time, and I like to see that.
Yeah, so just a quick quote on that. I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of forgot about that part of it. So, quick quote. He was asked if Super Bowl is the expectation in 2024. Quote, I think it's always has been. I don't think it's ever left. 5 minutes to go in the San Francisco game, I thought that's where we were squarely headed. So, that's a very telling quote. Also talking about that they're not ruling out looking to possibly deal some of their draft picks for veteran players this year. They do have 11 draft picks, which on Twitter today, or I guess I have to stop calling it Twitter. It's X. I'm trying to get more used to that. I don't like it, but I do too. So I did do my first Packers mock draft since the news that we're about to talk about, and it's very exciting. So if you're into that mock draft community, go check it out. It is on our Root for Wisconsin page as well as my personal page. So with that, Dylan, the big news of the day. The Packers have formally hired their new defensive coordinator. And it was a name that not one damn person expected, was not anywhere in the news about being interviewed or being on, in the hunt for the job. And that is former head coach of the Boston College Eagles, Jeff Hafley. Now, a lot of Packer fans, first reaction is, who the hell is this guy?
That was mine.
I will say, that was mine as well. However, now some, 23 hours later since that had happened, I am a full on board with this decision. Very comparable to the Robert Saleh, Brandon Staley type defense. Had experience working with both of them and Kyle Shanahan on the defensive end. He has been a defensive back coach at the NFL level for a number of years with a number of different franchises, specifically the Buccaneers, where one of the seasons he was there, his DB room was third in the league in interceptions, an area that the Packers severely lacked this year. He'd also spent time with the Cleveland Browns as well as the San Francisco 49ers under Coach Chip Kelly. He had gone and been a co-defensive coordinator under Coach Ryan Day at Ohio State. In that single season, his defense was fourth in the entire country in scoring at 13.7 points per game. First in total defense at 260 yards per game. First in pass defense at 156. And eighth in the country in rush defense at 104 yards per game. So that's kind of some of the numbers. Went to Boston College, had the team bowl eligible 3 of his 4 seasons, which when you play in the ACC and not at Clemson or Florida State, that is quite the accomplishment. You can look at some of those numbers and not love the record and some of the stats, but you're also, again, far from the best talent in that conference. So with that said, again, there's a lot of different ways to go here. So I'm going to ask, with, again, being 23 hours removed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, when this news dropped, I was like you, who the hell is this guy? So I did a little digging and seeing he's got, went over just a little bit ago, a fair amount of NFL experience, which is good. I mean, we're not just hiring some dude out of college. So it's optimistic. I think for many of us, it was confusing because I think a lot of us had certain names in mind. I thought what's his name from Baltimore? Zach Orr.
Yep.
I think he was a very popular name floating around that a lot of people expected us to hire. I think a lot of people expected LaFleur to look at Jim Leonard again. Not sure how far that went, if it ever went. Maybe Leonard didn't even call, or LaFleur didn't even call him. This, like you said, this wasn't a name that floated around anywhere. Even, we didn't discuss it last week at all. I had no idea this guy existed until this morning. So,
yeah.
Packers management has a knack for making what appears to be the wrong decisions at the time, but then turns out to be a solid one, given time to adapt and adjust. And I am going to give the benefit of the doubt for that.
Yeah, I will say I said it already. I was shocked a little bit by the decision because I expected some other names, and some big dominoes in that search fell yesterday and kind of limited as to who would possibly be available. But with that said, I really am excited about this hire. I think this is, when you kind of start digging in on the guy and looking at a number of different elements of what he brings to the table, what he has done, you can't help but get really excited, right? Like, you start looking past the initial, the initial stuff of it, and you start looking at, okay, you look at the Ohio State comparison, the work he did with Ohio State. You look at Richard Sherman and his time with San Francisco, talking about how he was the most prepared for games that he had ever been under defensive back coach Jeff Hafley. You start looking at the principles of what Jeff Hafley's defense looks like. And I know, it was rumored very early on the Packers defense, the new D coordinator would have, a heavy impact on the defensive back room, and that was a key to what they wanted to bring in. And they absolutely got exactly what they wanted. In that sense, some of the other things, start looking at some of the different, things that Boston College people have put out, and, in his time there. One thread that got a lot of love today came from Chris Haddad from Victory Sports, and talking about the concepts that they run. And it is going to be night and day different from what they had run under Joe Barry and even Mike Pettin, which is a little odd considering that that Jeff Hafley does have experience working with Pettin, but in his time in Cleveland. But some of the different things, and probably the most important thing, is that the Packers, they may switch to a true, or not a true 4-3, but kind of an offset, like a 4-2-5 defense, which I'm a big fan of. That's probably one of my favorite defensive schemes out there. I think it works especially well, and I think at the NFL level, when you have kind of linebackers playing almost like safeties and safeties playing like linebackers, it probably will be very beneficial to the rest of the team and the league. You're going to see a lot of different press coverage finally. Something that, there's nothing like under the Joe Barry defense of 3rd and 7, defenders 10 yards off the ball, and Jeff Hafley going as far to say, hey, that's stupid. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Not today. He didn't say that today. He didn't,
I'm sure he's been
Joe
thinking
Barry.
Yeah.
But some of the different things that came out, like the Chris Haddad thread on Twitter or on X, talking about how the benefits of press coverage and why he believes in it, talking about it eliminates the route tree, forces receivers to kind of declare their intention, disrupting timing with the quarterback, talking about, he's been known to travel a defensive back with a receiver, which is when you have a cornerback as talented as like a Jair Alexander, you want him traveling with Justin Jefferson, or you want him traveling with, whoever you name the team. Amon-Ra St. Brown when it comes to Detroit, or, well, there's not really a whole lot of great options in Chicago, but still, there's somebody there, that you want him traveling with. And to be open to doing that, talking about, some of the fundamentals about eyes and the hips, arm's length, focus on the receivers, read the first step, some of these just different concepts that he's going to bring to that DB room and the defense as a whole, which, Dylan, leads you to your first root for, and that is?
Yes. Preston Smith. Once this news drops, granted, this is an unverified report, I have seen talk that Preston Smith will be changing positions in our defense from cornerback to linebacker. So I'm happy for that for him. I think he's gonna be in a position to succeed. So yeah.
I truly, I love that. I really do. I saw that today. I saw one tweet that said the Packers have already changed his position on the website from cornerback to outside linebacker.
Yep, that's
a big switch.
About,
a big switch for a 10-year veteran, but I'm sure one that comes at a great time for him nevertheless.
Yep.
So yeah, great joke. That was definitely worth the hour and 10 that we put into that. I'm glad we got
in suspense. Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those that when you start looking into the schematics of what this new defensive coordinator brings, it's hard to not get excited and really look forward to what they can do. And, I'm not very good at mock drafts. I'll be the first one to say it, but I don't do all the college scouting. Like, I can read scouting reports that are on the website. But when you start looking at some of the guys that the Packers may have available to them at pick 25 and throughout the second and third rounds, and you start looking at the different defensive options, you realistically can go, your first 5 picks, I think you should still want to get an offensive lineman. You still should want to get a running back within those first 5 picks because you're having 5 picks in the top 100. But you have options to really shore up elements of your defense. Like, again, mock drafts are predictions, and they're based on simulations. They're not always, they're far from 100% accurate.
Right.
But when you can look at getting talent in the defensive backfield, like a Quinion Mitchell, who's having one of the best Senior Bowl weeks of the different defensive backs at the Senior Bowl. Tyler Nubin from Minnesota is a safety. Cameron Kitchens from Miami, who, for all intents and purposes, is a much more polished mixture of Darnell Savage and Sean Taylor, where he plays downhill and ball hawks and plays with speed. And when you start looking at some of those options, or like Jalen Ford, a linebacker out of Texas, so many different combinations of guys that, with this new defense and being an aggressive defense, you're going to need depth to play as aggressively because you're going to have a lot of different rotations, but also you're looking at putting almost a whole different type of athlete where you don't need that, the different corners that you're bringing in under Joe Barry, because you're not playing 10 yards off the ball every play. You're not playing to get beat over the top. You're saying, hey, come downhill, come at us. We're still going to beat you.
Yeah.
So
it's optimistic. I'm excited. I'm sure the guys in the locker room are excited, which, that's half the battle right there. You have to want to show up and play for the guy coaching you, which Joe Barry had definitely lost that locker room. So hopefully this new face in there is going to invigorate these guys and make some significant scheme changes and, propel us to that next level.
Yeah, and that's always what I mean. Even going back to some of the prime years of Aaron Rodgers, that always has just been what's missed out is just there's never been that one surefire get us stopped now type defense. At least not since 2010 when the Super Bowl year. And I mean, look at how many years from like 2012 to 2016 where it was, yeah, Aaron Rodgers playing at an elite level, but you're going to have to score every possession of a game and hope you get one stop.
Right. Our game plan was Aaron Rodgers score 48 points.
Right. And hope that your defense keeps them to 42.
Yeah.
And obviously there were games where they were significantly under that and they had, a lot of takeaways back then. But, you look at especially this last season with Joe Barry where you're a bend don't break defense, forcing them to make mistakes, but if you're not forcing turnovers, you're not going to get anything done.
Right.
And that's kind of the ultimate takeaway here is getting turnovers, playing downhill, forcing them to make mistakes by not letting them have time. I mean, I think I had seen, I don't have the exact tweet of what I had saw today, but it was talking about how the different, even like 6-man rushes that he brings with different stunts and twists and things like that. Just, it makes you excited because you know what the pass rush when they bring 4 can be. We saw bits of it towards the end of the season when Joe Barry was basically coaching for his next job. Where he would bring Quay Walker on a twist, and you look at the Chicago game where Justin Fields was on his back almost the entire game, and you're talking about a defensive coordinator who wants to do that all the time, not just against Chicago. That's exciting, and you look to build on that defensive back room and force turnovers and be put in the best position to get turnovers and defend the ball and get stops. Getting stops on third down is not what you should be aspiring for. It's what that's an expectation, or it should be, of a defensive coordinator.
Right.
Not having games where you look at even the Dallas game where there was some garbage time offense in there for the Cowboys, but they were 10 of 16 on third down that game.
Mm-hmm.
That's inexcusable. For as dominant as your defense was, and they had a very good game on paper. The 2 interceptions, including the pick 6, went a long way. But 10 of 16 on third down at any point it's unacceptable.
He's got some high expectations to fill because every single one of the fans wearing the green and gold is going to say, look, man, here's what we had to deal with last season. Don't make us do that again.
I'm just curious who the first idiot who's going to be sincerely believing Fire Hafley is. First guy to tweet Fire Hafley. Hashtag Fire Hafley.
I have an idea of who that's going to be. But I have a pretty good idea. We won't say any names on this show. I think we're on the same wavelength, I'm thinking.
Yeah. I'm pretty confident in that. All right. So that's really the extent of Packer talk, which it's a big hire. The initial thought was that Matt LaFleur was going to, there's all these other defensive assistant coaches have one more year under their contract, and a lot of them may stay. Mm-hmm. Matt LaFleur also said that, if you want to go look for other jobs, by all means, go ahead. But, Jeff can bring in his own guys. He didn't say that part of it, but be really interesting to see as to who he ends up bringing in and if he stays with the current staff for the last year here, what the deal's going to be on that. But it really is a lot of fun. Just kind of looking at comparing, and this is it's apples to oranges. But
they're both fruit. They can be compared.
But when you're comparing the college game to the NFL game, it's not necessarily a fair comparison, but it's still, you can kind of point to it. So Packers played man coverage last year at 32.5% of third downs, which was good for 22nd in the NFL. Boston College played man coverage on third down 63.1% of the time, which was second in all of the FBS.
That would be so nice to see.
Talking about aggressive playing cover zero, which is an all-out blitz, and not having any safety to help over the top. Packers played cover zero 1.4% of the time last season, and played four, which was good for 31st of 32 teams in the NFL. Played it in the red zone 4.5% of the time in the red zone, which was good for dead last. Boston College played it 8.4% of the time, which was 38th of the 133 FBS teams. Played it in the red zone 27.4% of their snaps, which was good for 43rd in the country. Like I said, a lot of six-man pressure, bringing in a guy like a Quay Walker on blitzes and loops. Defensive back blitzing, Dylan. Packers brought a defensive back on a blitz 2.6% of snaps, which is also last in the league. Boston College did it 15.2% of the time. I don't have where that ranks in terms of where that was in FBS ranks. I gotta imagine that's pretty damn high.
I would also think so.
Some very, like I said, just some lofty expectations, but very exciting. Those numbers all coming from Ben Fennell, Ben Fennell at _NFL, NFL on CBS, NFL on Prime Producer, Draft Expert, NFL Network, things like that. So want to give credit where credit's due. Great work by him to get this all out there. And yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, just a lot of exciting news. Obviously, we'll see what happens over the draft. We'll see what happens going into the season and as games start, and preseason starts. But you can't help but being excited once you do a little bit of research into the guy.
Yeah, and I'm guessing next week's episode we'll have more to talk to. As you know, I'm guessing he's going to have a press conference here, I would think, in the next couple of days, where we're going to get some more information. Matt LaFleur is going to give us more insight. So yeah, optimistic time when it comes to Packers defense. Absolutely.
So with that, Dylan, that's basically all of Wisconsin sports for the last week.
Yeah.
As mentioned, we have 2 wrestling events next week, which we'll be talking about in further depth probably next week. Royal Rumble was this last weekend. I know you're not a huge WWE guy, but was a lot of fun to watch. Wrestling is probably at its best spot right now. And yeah, that's the week of sports. We have the Chiefs and the 49ers in the Super Bowl once again. We'll probably talk more about that next week. I'm actually not that upset about the matchup.
Out of the possible matchups from the 4 teams that were left, this was my least favorite. I would have loved to see the Ravens and Lions.
Like I said, I think this is probably my most preferred matchup, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree.
I get where basically everybody and their brother did not want to see the Chiefs, and everybody and their brother wanted to see Detroit. I was pissed off at Detroit the last couple of weeks because, like I said, I've been very vocal about this. I thought they were on fraud watch, and I said that in my noogie. Just the timing of different things, I don't get, but that's, I guess at this point, kind of proved me right, and I can feel vindicated about that all I want. Still a very successful team, but exactly what I thought would bite them in the ass, bit them in the ass. And you saw it happen on Thanksgiving. You saw it happen against Dallas at the end of their regular season, and now it bit them in the ass in the playoffs. And like I said, just kind of rewarding. So, as for the Chiefs, I don't know what it is. I just can't buy into the Ravens. And I think part of that is just the fact that they, I remember growing up, it was Ed
Mm-hmm.
Reed, Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, and just none of those guys are there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't have that same feeling. So for my entertainment, my money, I'm fine. I do, if I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna give a retroactive noogie to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce for the antics on Justin Tucker
Yeah.
before the game. I thought that was a very bad idea. It worked out for him. But also, Baltimore laid an egg. And that's a lot of the criticism of them is they lay eggs in those big games. And another instance where that happened.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a Super Bowl matchup. I'm sure we'll have more on that next week, talking maybe some of the prop bets out there and some of the different elements of it. But I know that you're also sick of Taylor Swift. I'm actually kind of in the minority of that. Not that I want to see more and more Taylor Swift, but I think for the whole entire postseason, I think it's worked out to maybe a minute and a half of screen time or 2 minutes of screen time over the last 3 games, which in all fairness isn't really that much.
It's time of my life I'm not getting back.
Well, I think there's a lot worse that is in an NFL broadcast than seeing Taylor Swift's face for 10 seconds a clip.
I think that's relative, Fish.
It's better than seeing the trying to think of the old couple in the bathtub boner pill commercial for the 1,000th time a game.
That's also, yeah, I'll give you that.
Those are 30 seconds a clip. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not going to get into the whole, I just kind of started seeing some of the different, it gets young girls involved in the NFL, and, if you're going to berate them for seeing a girl on TV, and, people don't complain when it's Simone Biles or whoever. I'm not going to get into the whole thing of that. That's a lot bigger debate than for this show.
I'm not interested in that anyway, because it's just getting worn down, beaten into the ground. I'm telling you, man, she's going to be on the cover of Madden 25.
We had talked about this the other day. I would take your bet on that does not happen. I will give you, okay, let's do this for the podcast sake. We have it recorded for them. I will give you Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce. I'll take the field. If you are right, or if I'm right and it's somebody else, I'll take $1 from you. If it's Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, the and is a big part of this.
Okay.
That's the operative language, because Travis Kelce is a legitimate superstar, and the NFL has been really big on him. He's everywhere for advertising. But if Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce makes the cover of Madden, I will give you $100, and I will donate to some stupid geology charity that you can find out there. Find me a geology cause. I will also donate $100 to that as well.
Okay, deal.
All right. I'm glad we got that covered.
Yep.
All right, Dylan. So with that, all we have to do is to put a bow on this. What are you rooting for in the upcoming week?
It's not much of a rooting for. It's more of a get well soon. Coming from the Wisconsin Herd, the Milwaukee Bucks affiliate out of Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our more intense college basketball fans will recognize the name Drew Timme.
Oh yes,
famous.
That is not a deep pull. I was expecting a much deeper pull than that.
Famous for his 11-year career at Gonzaga
and mustache.
Yes. 11 years was an exaggeration, by the way.
It really wasn't that much of an exaggeration.
No, I know. He has suffered a fracture in his foot and will have to undergo season-ending surgery. So RIP to that bone in his foot, but hopefully he gets well soon. Averaging 9.7 points, 5.9 rebounds, and 1.9 assists in, I believe, 25-ish appearances for the Herd this season.
Mm-hmm.
So Get well soon. Go Herd.
Get well soon, Drew team. That's one thing that I've not been to a Herd game. We have not talked about them a whole lot, but
yeah, I went to a couple Herd. I went to a Herd game. I went to the Wisconsin Glow, also play in that arena in Oshkosh. You know, with some of our GB friends. Jessica Lindstrom's played there. Marion Cracker.
Lakin James has played there.
Lakin James has played there. Frankie Wirtz has played there. Yeah, I've been to a couple of those games. It's a good time. So,
all right, my root for the upcoming week. I'm going to go back to that Green Bay Cleveland State game on Saturday. That is such a huge game for standings and everything that kind of goes with it. So that is obviously going to be a lot of my attention the weekend. But that is one that it's a big game and it's got the big game feel to it for the Horizon League. So. Very exciting on that front.
Yep.
All right. Dylan, you got a bar of the week for us.
Oh, man. I haven't been to a bar. I haven't been out in a long time. I'm actually going to go with, I don't know if it's been said or not, but I'm going to go with the Mine Shaft in Oshkosh.
All right. I don't think we've ever said that because I don't think we've used an Oshkosh bar, so...
Yeah. They're famous. Mine Shaft's famous for apparently the largest game room of any bar. It is a good time. My lovely fiance and I attend there regularly. They do have a variety of good drinks. They do have some floats. They have some alcoholic floats that have been hit the spot. They do hit the spot. So they're reasonably priced. They have a lot of local stuff on tap. They have domestics. They have a lot of liquors and stuff like that. So
all right.
Nice horseshoe bar arena. Nice horseshoe bar where they have
area.
There you go. They have 5 TVs that are always playing sports. No, they have more than 5. They might have closer to 10 or 11.
It's a big jump.
Yeah. Last time I sat there, I sat at the end, so I was looking at one TV, and I had to peer around the corner to see the other wall. But there's either 3 or 4 on either side, so it's a good time.
All right, 4.1 stars on Google. Dylan, what is the go-to order at Mineshaft?
Oh, I get their nachos because you only get appetizers at the bar. You can't order meals; you can only get the appetizers. So I always get their nachos and a bunch of chips. They got the different colored chips. They got your standard color tortilla chips, and they got the black ones and the red ones. They mixed them all up, put a bunch of super greasy beef on there, and then they cover it in nacho cheese, and then jalapenos are optional.
Do you get the jalapenos?
I do get the jalapenos. All
right. So that is your bar of the week. And that is a bow on episode 142 for Shauna, Sean, Justin, and Ramsey, who are not here this week. For Dylan and myself, Eric Fisher, we are out. Pay attention to our social media pages for all the latest happenings in the state of Wisconsin. And with that, thanks for listening. We're out. See you.
See you.